It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hello everyone and welcome in. It is Experience the Buzz. My name is Steve Buzzard. So glad you could join us. So excited for today's episode as we bring you episode number 129. That's right. We've had a little gap. In fact, it's been a big gap. Bigger than I wanted it to be, but we're getting this train back on the track, and I can't think of a better way to get the train on track than to bring on my producer. That's right. Michael Knobbe is today's guest, and we're going to be talking about his new adventure and the newest sponsor of Experience the Buzz, and that would be MiKimos. That's right. We're talking barbecue, we're talking catering, and then we're going to get into the whole story of what Michael's about. This guy has got so many facets of what a true entrepreneur is, and I am so glad, obviously, to have him on board as my producer, and we'll talk about that aspect as well. So, you know what? We're not going to do What's the Buzz. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to get right into it, if you don't mind. And so here is my conversation with Michael Knobbe. Enjoy the talking story. Hello everyone and welcome in. It is Experience the Buzz. So glad to be back with you. We've had a little hiatus of sorts. And I'm so excited because today's guest is indeed Michael Knobbe. Now, Michael Knobbe, you've heard that name many, many times. That's because he is the producer of this program. Today, though, we're going to talk about his new adventure, MiKimos. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
You know what? I've always wanted to ask you this. Do you ever get called Mike? Or is it just Michael straight across the board?
Yeah, I think I've had many names, many variations of Mike, Michael. My last name is Knobbe, so I'll hear that one pretty often. And then my friends back home call me Knobbe because phonetically that's how it looks like it should be pronounced. And there's some comedy to that as well. So I've had many names under the sun, but yeah, Mike or Michael, either one.
Okay, well, in the time that I've known you, I've always called you Michael, but I'm like, I wondered if, I should have asked you, because I always ask kids when I'm teaching, do you have a preference? Did you want to be called Michael or Mike? But I never asked you that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, so my dad is also Mike Knobbe, so commonly when I'm around him, I'll get Michael or Mikey even.
Got it.
So yeah, again, I've had so many variations. I do not have a strong preference one way or the other.
Okay, well, we'll just keep it at Michael, and today I'm pumped, man. This is you've been talking about it for so long, behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And I've kept, not bugging you, but just going, oh, man, when do we get to talk about MiKimos? And you know what? I appreciate the fact that you took the necessary time for this moment to happen, because things are now locked in. So what I want you to do is just describe the business to everybody. What is MiKimos?
Yeah, so MiKimos is a barbecue and catering business. Our idea is, or what we love to do, is we love to cook outside, which is pretty easy to do in California, even on the chilly days. And for those of you who may be tuning in from other parts of the country, yes, California gets its own version of cold. People are like, it's sunny out there, you got palm trees, shush, right? But again, we love cooking outside. Again, it is a side gig for myself and my father-in-law. So I've been doing this cooking thing forever, and then the barbecue thing more specifically the last couple of years. And we always kind of shot around the idea of kind of turning it into something more. And then we were finally like, all right, let's make this happen. So I have a smoker that's as big as some people's houses, not to brag. And so we were just like, hey, let's turn this into something. So that's what we did.
Beautiful. And so when did that seed of okay, this is going to happen, this idea is going to come to form, right? Because you got to first speak it into existence.
Right.
Obviously, as you said, there's a lot of background in terms of cooking and all that, but I always love hearing about that moment where it's yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah, great question. So I've always cooked in mass. I've never known how to cook for a small group. I always cook plentifully, right? And so again, in terms of the barbecue thing, it really, I think, the origins of it, again, when I got my first kind of barbecue, my smoker, Again, when we moved up here to Sacramento, like the big reason of coming up here was being closer to family. My fiance and her whole family are from here. And so just having them over for kind of Sunday dinners and kind of getting feedback, again, like family generally is going to be like, no, it's good. But it was when I saw those moments where they may not have realized that I was looking at them like a weirdo, that aha moment where they're like, oh, that's really good. It started to become a little bit more, okay, maybe this is something. And then we did, for the barbecue thing specifically, like we pitched around different name ideas, and then I finally pitched the idea of MiKimos, and that's what we settled on. And we did our first event, I think last May was kind of our first kind of like get go, like let's do this. And we catered for about 70 to 80 people. And across the board, people were like, where's your business card? Will you do this for us? Will you come over here? And then that was just like, yes, absolutely will. Do we have a business card right at this moment? No, but it always sounds cliche to say stay tuned, but we were like, we will be doing this. So that was kind of the very first event, and now we're off to the races on it.
Okay, and I'm telling you, the catering business, I don't want to use the word competitive. There's a lot of people
Certainly
doing it, and I guess it is okay to say it's competitive.
It is.
But I always look about like what goes into it, right?
Yeah.
Because being a wedding DJ, I see caterers all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's really fun to watch individuals and teams work to, first of all, put food together, then to be able to deliver it, and then, of course, get the results. I mean, I think of the moments where, I'm going up to the caterer and say, man, that was the best food that I've ever had, like top to bottom. So
Right.
Take us through that process, because there's so much preparation that takes place. Maybe just take us through an event. So you get an event. How does that process go from start to finish?
Yeah, so great question. So on our first event specifically, it was a 2-year-old's birthday party, and I want to paint a picture. So when you think of a 2-year-old's birthday party, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And the first thing that you should think of is Masters, right? Every 2-year-old loves the Masters, and I'm not joking. That was the theme of the birthday.
Okay, so that was the furthest thing I was thinking. I actually thought of balloons.
Yeah, it's not even close. It's not even close. But who am I to judge, right? So they were like, we're going for the Masters. And we go, okay, great, right? So it's from that idea where I start working with the person or the people putting it together. And I go, okay, what do you want? What are some menu ideas, right? Again, you see barbecue in the name. And again, it's to kind of dispel, like it's not, when you think barbecue, like it's not just traditional, like only sweet barbecue, all these different things. Like, again, it's just the idea that you can cook something outside. So working with the guests. So the Masters, they wanted to stick a little bit more faithful to a Masters menu, what you could find if you went to the Masters. So that was very easy for us. Pulled pork just happens to be on their menu. So it's like, that's easy. Got that. And there were other elements that they wanted. So it's just working with the guests and deciding, okay, first off, again, what do you want? How many people are there going to be? And what do you expect us to provide? So for this menu in particular, for that event, it was pulled pork and egg sandwiches and all these different things that don't, in my opinion, necessarily go together. And again, just working with that guest, I mean, like, do you want us to provide all of that? Are we providing part of that? And then working with them too to be like, okay, now that we have established what it is that we're providing, did you have a budget in mind? And kind of working with them on that as well. Like, that's another big element. Is just kind of getting an idea again, is what is your budget? What did you have in mind? And then
because you're going to have food costs, but then it's also the cost of you being there.
Certainly.
Yes.
Certainly. So we've had the great advantage, if you will, of my father-in-law, his very, very good friend does catering. He does events, and he has a traditional brick and mortar restaurant. And so we've taken a lot of advice from him on what it is that he does for, again, very, very similar type events. And again, just getting different like ideas from around on how to come up with that pricing and get something to a place where, again, if something is going to be on the more affordable side, again, working with that guest and making sure that we align on what is affordable and what is astronomical, and doing all that good stuff from there.
So it's interesting because I have had the opportunity to go to the Masters. I did it back in 2010, and you nailed it with the egg salad sandwiches. Mm-hmm. I know pimento, whatever they call it, pimento cheese sandwiches,
was there too.
And sweet tea.
Sweet tea, yep.
Sweet tea. So you probably had all those elements in place, and really that's the simple menu that they have at the Masters. There's not too much over that. And I think I'm not sure about the pulled pork, because I'm trying to think if they had that as well. I don't know. I was focusing on egg salad and sweet tea. That's all I ate and drank the time I was there.
So to clarify, yes, they do have pulled pork, but yeah,
they do. Okay, thank you.
And then when you look at like the history of their menu and how simple it is and the pricing of it, like again, to be fair, I don't ever imagine slinging egg sandwiches or pimento sandwiches on a regular, but I can appreciate the camaraderie or the simplified nature of not only that menu but also their prices. If you look up their prices, I think a sandwich is like $3.
That's the thing. It's a very the model is very close to like what In-N-Out burger would be.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. And I think like using them as a great example of like my goal for our menus and these different events is to have a very, very kind of like simplified couple of things menu. Like I'm not interested in running a snack bar. Like, I'm not knocking that idea or that business. I don't want the menu that's the stunt. Like, I want to put a couple of good things in a box, on a plate, whatever it is, in front of somebody. And I want those moments of like, man, I've never had anything quite like that. Or again, like, even if it's not, I want to make it the best that it possibly can be. And again, I think simple, like, ingredients, like, that's kind of what made me fall in love with barbecue in the first place, is just the simplicity of it, right? So, yeah.
Well, and I like what you said about barbecue too, because as you're saying that word, like in my mind, I'm thinking barbecue sauce. I'm thinking ribs, right? Which I know is a portion of what you do, but it's not the total overall picture of what you do.
Right. And again, to your point, that is there's definitely room for that. I made that this weekend. But it's much more than that. And depending on what parts of the country you're taking ideas from, or you're growing your menu from, taking inspiration from, like, barbecue means so much to different parts of the country, whether it be its origin from like the southeast part of the country, where it's barbecue is it's pig, it's pig straight up. And if they're going to sauce something, it's going to be less of a traditional like tomatoey sweet barbecue sauce and much more of like a mustard, vinegar, like kind of like thin, what they call mop sauce. And then when you start going a little bit further west, that's when like those tomato elements and like, again, those thicker, I'll say more kind of traditional barbecue sauces come in. But to be fair, the barbecue that I make, I mean, again, we will definitely, depending on what it is, provide a sauce of some kind that I make. But if I can, my goal is to make a protein and make stuff that you don't put sauce on. That would be my goal. To me, sauce is hiding what it is that you worked on.
Really? Because see, I'm a sauce guy, man. I'm like, sauce it up.
Exactly. Well, and I can understand that. I think that is barbecue for a lot of folks, and I'm not knocking it. That's a personal taste thing. But if I'm putting together something like a brisket, right? So an average brisket for me takes anywhere from 16. I've had briskets take up to 24 hours, if not more, from just the cooking process, right? And so putting that time into something, and then just to be like, okay, here's this protein. Put the seasonings together. Again, keep that very simple, but we have this beautiful piece. Slather some sauce that you bought off the grocery store shelf. It's like, again, it's all personal taste. And again, I am there to make sure that people get what it is that they want. But yeah, if somebody asks me like, what would you recommend? Like, that's generally what I'd recommend. I'd be like, again, if it's pulled pork, sauce for sure. If it's ribs, that's up to you. If it's brisket, for me, it has no business. But again, that's just me.
I think that's an interesting perspective. And you're right. With food, I mean, everybody has their personal taste, right? Sauce, no sauce, something in between. So let's do a reset. This is Michael Knobbe. He is the producer of this program, but he is also on a new adventure. It's called MiKimos, catering business, barbecue, and just really has gotten off the ground and doing a great job. Has got a trailer, which I know you worked really hard on. Maybe talk about the construction of that, because I know that was a big piece. And what does that piece serve for your business?
Yeah, so we got it's a 12-foot trailer, and we are just using that to haul our stuff around. So it's to paint a little bit of a picture, again, it's a gear trailer to kind of just to get our stuff to where we need it to go. It's not something that we're going to be cooking on. Again, it's just to get from one place to another. But again, we've had all of our logos are put on it. We have it looks pretty pro. It looks pretty I mean, my opinion is very biased, but it looks pretty good. And I think the one thing, or one of the many things that my father-in-law and I have really aligned on is when we go to, I mean, again, we talked about that mini event, but when we go to being actually like outside of like family events and more kind of customer facing, like that first impression is everything. And again, we wanted to look as professional as possible. So I did mention, like, I think that it was silly, or it can come across silly, us having like the shirts or the hats or the trailer and all these different things like before the big events start rolling around. But I knew that when we got there, and again, he feels the same, it looks pro. It, like, we want you to feel like these guys have been at this forever. And so again, the trailer was definitely a huge part of that.
Okay, glad you said that, because again, going back to my experience of working with caterers, if I see you with what you have on right now, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Right? You can explain to me that, yeah, we're barbecue, we're catering. Obviously, you can kind of put two and two together, but branding is everything. You should never see any kind of vendor and try to guess what their name is. There's somewhere you've got to find out. So, like for me, when I DJ, I don't worry too much about promoting myself. It's a little bit different in a sense, because I'm there for the couple, but you're always going to have people coming up to you. So I have just something on the back of my laptop that says Buzzard Ball DJ Entertainment. That's as far as I go. When it comes to someone like you, I think it's very, very important to definitely have your name right there and to be able to see it right away, because that's the thing you walk away with is, yeah, hopefully I grab your business card, but if I don't, will I remember MiKimos? And I think I will, based on the fact that I saw the branding right away with the hat and the shirt.
Right. And again, I think something that I am really putting a lot of, I don't know if energy towards, or like a focus towards. So when we kind of started like putting together like our branding and our shirts and our different merchandise and things like that, like another natural question was, how are people going to contact us? How do they hire us? Like, do we put our phone numbers on our merch? Do we do different things like that? And I was the voice of the one saying, no, we're not putting, as of right now, I didn't want to put our phone numbers out on anything. So right now, our main means of being contacted, and I'm very much skipping ahead, is through online. Like, I'm keeping it to kind of the socials as of right now. And I'm not saying that it'll never grow from there, but I think...
but it's a good place to start.
Certainly.
Yep.
And I think too, like my biggest reason for not putting the phone number out there specifically was because my father and I, we both work full-time jobs doing other things, right? So the idea of putting a phone number out there that would 10 times out of 10 go to voicemail, it just seemed like counterproductive. But again, it's just like kind of keeping an eye on like what's working for businesses now, like how do we get our names out there? And again, to your point, get the brand out there. And again, through social media, kind of like grassroots, like word of mouth, and like sharing on social media is like, that's really kind of being where we're putting our energy towards.
See, and this is what Experience the Buzz is all about. You're getting a taste of it right now. Whether you're into barbecue or catering or not, the story speaks to any business. Like the strategy that Michael and his father-in-law are putting together in being able to put this forth. And you bring up a very good point, because when you're an entrepreneur, and you have another job, your approach has to be completely different. And you just described it so well for there. So I'm sure people are wondering, well, what does he do for a 9 to 5? So share that with everybody, because I think that's pretty fascinating, because you've been doing that for just a little while, but I know it's been something you were aiming to do.
Yeah, thank you. When I'm not doing this barbecue thing, I work for Apple full time. That little kind of startup company. I don't know if they're gonna last. Only the biggest tech company on the planet. Who
Right.
what do they know about anything? And I am what's called a creative pro. So I get to facilitate for folks, teach these free classes. I'm gonna sound very promoty here. It's called Today at Apple. There are these free classes. Folks can come in, and it's for everyone in between, right? So someone who's brand new to these products, someone who's had them for a while, young, old, again, everywhere in between. Again, the idea of coming in and learning how to use your device from the ground up to the person who's looking for things or more kind of creative outlets to use their products for. So that is, you can find me at Apple Arden Fair Tuesday through Saturdays, most weeks.
That's awesome. So, and a lot of people don't know that. I mean, they don't know that there are free classes at Apple, and I want to explore that a little bit later in the conversation because I do think that's an awesome piece with our focus right now just being on MiKimos. How many events have you been able to do? When would you say was your official launch? Like you said, you did that event last May, but that may have just been a kicker to where you are right now.
Oh, that's a great question. So, our first actual event will be the Saturday after this episode airs. This upcoming Saturday, November 4th, will be our very first event. You can find us at the American River College football game.
Wow.
Yeah, expected to be about 2,000 people in attendance. We're not the only vendor. There's going to be, I think, 2 others as of right now. One who's kind of primarily doing I'll say hot dogs and things of that nature. But we're very much our own thing, and we're trying to, in these events that we're going to, we're trying to also be aware of what other people are doing because, again, we're new to it, so we don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Yeah.
And again, present something that's different than what the others may have there. So that'll be our very first official kind of heavy event.
Okay, so look at this. This is completely different from a 2-year-old birthday party that has a master's theme. Okay. So, I mean, what is the approach? What is your menu going into it? And is this something that would be a staple for you guys when you do these types of events?
Yeah. So for this event in particular, we're doing, we have 3 different kind of I'll say main course options. And then some sides to go with. So the main one that we're excited for is pulled pork again for this event. So we're going to do pulled pork sliders. And we're also going to do a couple of different tacos, right? So we have chicken and beef tacos. So again, one is definitely very barbecue. And then again, we have other stuff that we can make outside, right? And for each event, it's kind of depend on what it is, how many people do we have working with us? And again, what is it that we want to bring to people? So for a football game, again, we want to bring something that we know can be a showstopper, and I know that we can do that with the pulled pork and the tacos as well. But we also want to bring something that, again, is a little bit more economical, and pulled pork is definitely one of them. I'd love to do brisket or beef ribs or something like that, but those are a little bit more pricey, and I don't worry about that so much for us, so much as just what we can justifiably charge somebody, especially, again, at a college football game. So that's the big element.
Okay, so here's the other piece too, is you know how many people might be there.
Right.
You've got other vendors you're contending with. See, this is something I've often wondered when I see a line of food trucks, how much food do you bring? Ooh. And if you have any left over, what happens with that food?
Great question. So a couple of things. So this was a big one for us. So, again, learning from my father-in-law's friend who owns the restaurant. So he has the added benefit of if it doesn't sell an event, he has the brick and mortar restaurant. For us, the goal is bring enough to make it worth our time to go, but ultimately to sell out, right? So for 2,000 people being there, again, we're kind of going off of hoping to sell to at least 1,000 of them.
Okay.
Right. And then again, you just go based on so we get a lot of our product through different means, the main one being Restaurant Depot, and we'll kind of go. So we're going to do a full case of pork shoulder where you get the pulled pork from. And I'm forgetting I'm blanking on the amount of weight from that, but it's about 8 pork shoulders. And for reference, so for that event that we did previously, we fed all of those people. Now, mind you, again, there were additional sides, but we fed all of those people with 2 pork shoulders. So, I mean, it goes a pretty good distance. So again, you just try to factor off that. And Again, this will be kind of our put up or shut up moment, like a real trial method to see like, okay, for this many people, what worked, what didn't, and then again, kind of accommodating that and adjusting that to other events.
Okay, and then you're taking those pork shoulders, they have to be prepped. That's when the smokers come into play, right?
Yeah.
So there's all that beforehand. Take us through that. Like, what's that going to look like for you?
Yeah, so our commissary is out of Kimo's friend's restaurant, right? So that's where we keep all of our product. That's where we prep all of our product. Just to keep everything above board, sanitary, all the things in between. So pork shoulders can typically take anywhere from like 12 to 16 hours. You can definitely get them across the finish line a lot faster, but if I don't have to, I'm not going to. So I will put those on Friday. My father-in-law will be here to keep an eye on them, keep them what's called spritzed, so it doesn't like get too crunchy on the outside. So again, we'll do all that on Friday, and then once it's done, we will pull it. Get it into refrigeration, and then early Saturday morning, we can either do one of two things. Either you can put it back onto the smoker to get back up to temperature, or if you don't want to put it into refrigeration, what you could also do is keep it into what's called a hot box or a warming box, where it'll hold everything at about anywhere from like, I typically set mine between like 160 plus to keep everything at, again, not only to a place where it's safe to consume, but also it actually gets better with time.
Okay, so I have to imagine too that the chemos part of this equation is very important, because as you're talking, I'm saying, well, what would it look like if you didn't have chemos, if you didn't have a place to be able to, like you said, store and prepare and stuff? I imagine would be a bigger challenge. This is probably true for most caterers, right? That they've got to have that place.
Yeah, so you legally have to have a commissary to be into the catering business. You legally have to have a place to have like proper, again, refrigeration and again, all the other like kind of safety and health elements that come with it. But going to the pandemic here for a moment, one thing that really like spurred from that time, through people like ordering through online, again, your DoorDash, Postmates, whatever it is, like direct to consumer restaurants, that became the breeding ground for the ghost kitchen. There's a lot of very interesting documentaries about that. I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Beast, who that is. He's one of the biggest online social media influencers. A company came to him, said, hey, we want to make a ghost kitchen, meaning there's no brick and mortar. It's not going down to the restaurant to sit in. It's delivery only. And what they do is they operate out of other restaurants' kitchens. And then again, it's anybody in the world, for the most part, can order a Mr. Beast burger. The drawback to that is, right, is for someone of that level, is ultimately that guy is suing, Mr. Beast is suing Mr. Beast Burger for like $100 million because of quality, right? But all that to say, right, long tangent long, again, so there are other places where you can go and get what's called a ghost kitchen. So we have facilities here over in kind of like Roseville, Citrus Heights area. There's a ton in Sacramento where you pay what would be like close to like your mortgage price for a house, maybe a little bit less as of these days. And again, you have like a commercial kitchen that you can fully use, but again, it's not like a traditional restaurant.
Wow, that's interesting. Fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Like, that's good stuff. So thank you for unveiling that. My goodness.
Yeah. I hope that there was some new information in there.
Of course there was. So again, we are speaking with Michael Knobbe, and he is now. Do you call yourself the owner? What title do you give yourself?
Yeah, I co-owner, operator. Yeah, we still haven't worked out exact titles. I think, admittedly, so my father-in-law, full disclosure, has been the biggest part of like the financial side of this thing, and again, other business elements as well. So again, like. I'm like, what title is it? But co-owner, I think, would be the most appropriate.
Okay, so go co-owner of MiKimos, and getting ready to do their first big event, their first official event. I mean, that's got to be pretty exciting. It's like, I always think of like guys playing their first Major League Baseball game. It's got the equivalent of that.
Yeah, sure. It is exciting. It's very exciting. And again, one of my first real jobs was at a restaurant. So I have the idea of like the food service. And again, I've never cooked in small quantities. So And I think for us, so that first event and this one too, I think the biggest benefit that we have, the thing that is very relieving, is the fact that it's a set period of time. You have this many hours, right? And again, it's I don't want to say it's a one and done, because we want to go back as many times as we can, but this is a real like put up or shut up moment, and that's what gets me excited.
Okay, so as we kind of end this segment, how can people find you? How can they find MiKimos?
Yeah, so the main way to contact us now is going to be through Instagram. So you can find us through it's just MiKimos Barbecue on Instagram. You put links into the
we'll do the little show notes thing.
Yeah, so you can find us through there. On Instagram, it has our little email us link, or a little button, right? So that's how you can contact us. And again, that'll be the best kind of method for kind of starting those conversations. And again, from there, then again, we'll make phone calls to people who are looking to get some good barbecue in their life in the Sacramento area.
Okay, so when you say MiKimos Barbecue, is it BBQ or spelled out barbecue?
That is a great question, and we are going to cut it as I am looking it up.
That's right. Let's make sure he's on the spot.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm so glad that I did my. Okay. So it is. So it's going to be MiKimos _barbecue spelled out.
_barbecue. And of course, like I said, we'll have this in the show notes for you. But if you're getting it on the audio side, if you type in MiKimos, you're pretty much going to come across it. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So before we leave this segment, though, I am curious, as a co-owner now of this business, what's some of the best advice that you've received? Okay.
Right.
And maybe what has been the biggest challenge is as you get ready to dawn on this new adventure?
Yeah. Okay. So, man, so much great advice. Again, especially for our first event coming up. I would say just all the notes that, again, Frank, my father-in-law's friend, has given to us. Again, a big one being like, there's a lot of practical stuff and a lot of practical questions. Like when you talk about, again, how much food do you think to prep, right? Mm-hmm. Going to him with that exact question, right? Like, how much should I expect to cook? How much should I expect to use per person, right? And then him giving us, again, a very literal answer of like, okay, if you're going to do protein, whether it be beef or pork or chicken, like factor anywhere from like 7 to 8 ounces per person. Again, it's a very like kind of, I don't want to say throwaway piece of advice, but it's very practical and it's a very easy thing to kind of wrap your mind around. Again, a lot of great like pricing advice, again, making sure that we are pricing our guests fair, but also making sure that we are covered on the back end. Another great, very strong piece of advice. This may be a little inside baseball, but that's what we're here for. So I found this video and it's called How to Price Your Brisket. And I used it as a guide to make sure that we're pricing our other stuff accordingly, right? And that guy gave a handful of great pieces of advice, but one of them was, if you're starting a new business, especially in the food business, if you price based on what the other guy is charging, if you price based on the it'll get your name out there element, you're dead in 2 years. You're gone, right? And again, whether that's 100% of the time or not, neither here nor there. But I think in my past experiences, like I started my first business when I was 13 years old, right? And a lot of that was a t-shirt company, and a lot of that business was me giving shirts away. Here, take a shirt, right? And it was all fun and good until then the next time they came and I was like, hey, this shirt is whatever it is. And they're like, right. Why would I buy that from you when you just gave me one for free, right? And so, again, it was a very, very, very practical piece of advice, again, especially applying it now to this new thing that we're going into.
I love
that.
So
that was the biggest one. That was the like absolute biggest, like clear cut. Yes, absolutely. And then in terms of like challenges specifically, it's just what everybody deals with, the allocation of time, right? But fortunately for me, like I don't compare what we do to those fine folks in other parts of the country where I call them like the real barbecue masters. I'm fortunate to where like my smoker, it does the work for me. You know what I mean? Like there is still a lot of like craft and like energy that goes into it. But if you know your temperatures, if you know your time, and if you know what to look for, and that all comes with, this sounds so silly, but it all comes with experience, truly, like you can put something pretty impressive together.
and we're going to talk about smokers because I want you to kind of give us a smokers for dummies, like kind of like people like me that you can kind of help us with, and we'll do that on the backside. But
Sure.
Another piece of this is because MiKimos is now going to be a sponsor of Experience the Buzz. That kind of makes sense, right? Great partnership and being able to promote your business and your new adventure. So, of course, we're happy to have you aboard. Of course, you're the producer of the program. So.
Yeah. But I don't want any of the other sponsors to be affected when my logo's that much bigger.
Just slightly bigger.
Yeah. PITBOSS Jerky is going to be like, okay, I do have a bone to pick.
Oh
with this guy.
man, well, hey, I haven't seen beef jerky in a while, so don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. In fact, we are going to be thanking our sponsors in this break, and when we come back, more with Michael Knobbe. He mentioned it all started for him at age 13 with the business. He definitely has the entrepreneur spirit inside of him, and I kind of want to dive a little bit more into that. This first segment all devoted to, again, the new adventure. Again, it's MiKimos, and you can follow him on Instagram. That's MiKimos_barbecue spelled out. We'll be back right after this. All right, it is break time, and Michael has not left me because I said, you know what, stick on board because we want to thank our sponsors. Michael knows them by heart, right? I mean, they are.
Of course. Yes. So let's talk about PITBOSS Jerky, right? We'll talk about PITBOSS Jerky. So we got Joe Green down there with, again, it was 12 flavors of beef jerky, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It went from it was at 11, went up to 12. To 13 and then backed down to 11. They got rid of the keto mix because they changed their seasoning. That actually they didn't need that it was going to be installed in all of the flavors.
Wow, that's fantastic. Good for them. Yeah. Good for them. That's fantastic. And then if you wouldn't mind reminding us, Steve, what is the new flavor of the Experience the Buzz flavor? Because around here we have our own. Not only do we have our own barbecue business, but there is also a beef jerky named right after the show. And what is the name of that beef jerky again?
And it's kind of interesting because it was called Experience the Buzz, but Joe was able to get into a manufacturing plant, and the manufacturing plant did all of their labeling and suggested to him that they make it Buzz Experience. So the name has been changed, and I believe it is Buzz Experience. I hope I got that right. But he said they shortened it up, and the label looks real good, and obviously, they've taken it to the next level. They have decided against the website. I don't think they're going to do the website. I think they're just going to do the number, and then they have some other plans because they are rocking it here in Sacramento. It's at Amy's Hardware, and it's also up at Knee Deep Brewery in Auburn. So we're very thankful, of course, to PITBOSS Jerky. Then, of course, we have R5 Stitch and Print with our good friend Troy Rousey. We know a lot of stuff that I know I've done that we've done through him, so we're very thankful to Troy. And we should mention that Troy and Joe have been with us since day one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They have their very own episodes featured right here. You can find those back in the archive. Hoping to do a follow-up episode of some kind with the two of them, right? Again, we always want to find out where previous guests are now, again, in comparison to where we started, right? Again, this show started right in kind of
January of 2021.
There you go, right? So again, there's definitely, it's always interesting to see not only where they started, but again, now where they are in the post-pandemic life, right?
Yeah, like what has happened in the 2 years since you've been on the program. And in fact, they are featured in episodes 25 and 26, so you can check them out. Well, episode number 129 features this guy. It's Michael Knobbe. Now, we've done some shows together on the other side of our other program called First Look, but this is his own show because we did want to highlight our newest sponsor, and that is MiKimos. And of course, we've talked about that in the first segment, but again, give the information.
Yeah, so you can find us online on Instagram, right? Find us. It's MiKimos. It's MIKIMOS_barbecue spelled out. BARBECUE. Man, do that on the spot, right? MiKimos barbecue, right? I'll trust your spelling more than mine, and if not, autocorrect is there for a reason, right? So you can find us through there from that website or from that page. You'll be able to contact us via email as of right now. And again, we just want to dispel this idea that barbecue is only the sweet sauced barbecue. Again, if that's what you want, we're happy to provide it. But again, if it can be cooked outside, if you're looking for someone to take the pressure off of what am I going to cook for this event, right? Whether it be for 20 people, 70 people, or again, we have a football game coming up with 2,000 people. We want to take that burden off your chest so you can get back to enjoying that party experience that you've already set out to do so. So again, you can find us online on Instagram, right? Again, MiKimos_barbecue.
All right, there you go. So MiKimos, PITBOSS Jerky, R5 Stitch and Print, all proud sponsors right here on Experience the Buzz. Now back to my conversation with this guy.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back. There you go. More of Steve Buzzard and Michael Knobbe. That's right. We are here on Experience the Buzz talking to, yes, my producer, the producer of this program, and today really highlighting his business called MiKimos, which is now a proud sponsor here on Experience the Buzz. You mentioned something about age 13. You started with t-shirts, and that's what I love hearing those types of stories, because I think that's where the seed is planted, right? You have a 9-to-5 job. You work for Apple. You absolutely love your job, but you had this fascination of wanting to do what is now MiKimos. And see, I love that. And it is doable. It is doable for anybody out there that has a passion outside of their 9-to-5 job. Whether you love it or hate your 9-to-5 job, I think there's room to do something different on the side.
Yeah, amen to that. And I think the one piece, or the one through line with a lot of the folks that I work at Apple with is so many of them also have their own side business that they own and operate from here in the Sacramento area, right? So again, it to your point, it is very doable. And again, I feel very, very fortunate landing where I did. I tell folks all the time, like I grew up with Apple. I always wanted to work there, and when I finally got the call after moving up here, it was truly life-changing. And again, I don't ever imagine leaving there because I love the work that I get to do. I love getting to, yes, I work in the store, and yes, it's a retail element, and there are the things that come along with that, but it's so much more than that. And the best part of that job is the fact that there's this idea that we're commission based or anything like that, and we're not, right? They treat us very, very well there, give us a very, very fair salary range. And again, I get the privilege again of not only teaching the class, but if I am going to go sell something, there's no pressure there. Like the idea of Apple, I mean, it sounds very very confident, but people are coming through those doors either way, right? So getting to be able to answer those questions and again get people, whether they want to buy something or not, getting those questions answered and those aha moments, that's I mean, you can't really ask for more than that, at least in my opinion. And yeah, to your point, I started a business. My very first business was when I was 13 years old. So again, that hustle has always kind of been there.
Well, and there's a third arm to what Michael does. I mean, well, just think about it. He produces this show. In fact, that's how we met back during COVID. Luxe for Life, which is a great program here in the Sacramento area. I've been their auctioneer the last few years. We obviously had to do something online, and so there was a connection. It was Apex Studios, which resides in Southern California, where Michael used to live. So he came up with the group. Loved the group. We worked together not once but twice. Dayo Elementary actually used them as well, and then that's where we made the connection. And what's interesting is when you made that move up to Sacramento, I remember you just reaching out to me and you had heard about the podcast and you just asked the simple question, hey, could I help you out in terms of producing it? And it came just at the right time. I was producing my own episodes audio only for the first 80, but when you came aboard, it just changed the whole landscape. You did such a quality job or doing a quality job. Then we had a YouTube presence, and then that burst out into First Look. So much has happened, but talk about kind of that piece as well, because obviously you have a love for that. And there's more. There's something, we got it. Oh, there's so much to uncover, but we'll start right there.
So when it wasn't food, when it wasn't tech, it was film. That was one of my this sounds so silly, but it was truly one of my first loves. Growing up, I lived with my grandparents for most of my life, and one of the consistencies of that, my grandmother would take me to the movies on Friday nights. And we went every week, every single week. I went to watch the movie. She went to get a good nap in. She would snore in the theater. I would have to wake her up. But she would go for the popcorn, the Diet Coke, and the nap, right? And I don't blame her. Looking back at some of those movies, I don't blame her, right? And so growing up and going then into high school, we've talked about this on our other show, as you mentioned, in First Look, but growing up, I was never into partying. I was never into like boozing, drinking. Now I smoke, but it's a very, very different thing. So it just, none of that ever appealed to me. And then I found I found the group of friends that I still have to this day going to metal shows. And my way of kind of like really getting into that group or getting into like being friends with them was I would just bring my video camera with me and I would record their shows. And they were not good videos at all. The audio was in camera. It was a little flip camcorder, if you remember those, but they loved it. And I had other bands asking me, will you record our set? And so I started doing that, did a YouTube show out of my garage for a little bit, talking about, again, producing your own stuff like that. When I saw your podcast, that's what stuck out to me, where I was like, I know what that's like to come up with the idea and record the idea and edit the idea and post the idea. And by the time you get all done doing that, you get to do it all over again. And there's a lot of fun to that, but there's a lot of work to that. And again, so I did that for a while. And then in 2016, I got tired of it looking bad, and I wanted to know how to do the film thing better. So I moved to Los Angeles, California, and I lived there from 2016 till February of, hard to believe, but 2 years ago now at this point.
Wow. So literally that was like, I mean, you're saying it's the blueprint, right? You want to live the dream. You go to LA, you go to Hollywood, and you wanted to take this to the next level.
Absolutely. And I feel like I feel very, very lucky with the experience that I had there, right? Did everything turn out exactly how I had thought initially going down there? No, absolutely not. But would I change it for anything? Absolutely not. The school that I got to go to the New York Film Academy of Los Angeles, California. Figured that one out. But the friends that I made there are truly some lifelong best friends. My best friend from there, his name is Shadi. He's out of Argentina, had to go back to Argentina, but we talk almost daily. Just little messages now through Instagram for the most part, but I got the very, very, I got to work on a few different cool projects. I got to work for Lionsgate a little bit. I got to work with a lot of just very inspiring and fun people. And then my last, I'll say, consistent gig was for Apex Art Studios out of North Hollywood. And Apex and I would say we were kind of in a similar boat at the same time. Apex opened up. I don't know if you'll find this interesting. Apex opened their doors 2 days before the world shut down.
Oh, wow.
2 days, right? They were open. They have a few guests. They're booking it out. They're sitting in one of their studios, and they get the news, shut it all down.
Wow.
And they're on the hook for this big facility in North Hollywood, California. And so they're like, oh, man, what do we do, right? And so they find out how to make it COVID compliant. And again, it's not really making anything. And I'm not disparaging them, and I don't think I'm getting to leaking their information, but there was no business coming in. At some point, they start bringing on interns. That's where I come in. I get hired to do marketing, which I have very little experience marketing, right? But I get that job, and I quickly talk myself into, I'm like, you guys should just let me do video for you. Like, you guys want to do this movie thing. You want to do these videos. Like, you should just let me do that for you. And they're like, cool, say less, do it. So that's what we did. And quickly after that, I saw bands recording live stream videos of themselves playing their different sets on their iPhones that they put in the corner of the room. And again, talk about, bad audio, bad video. So I was like, man, I know how to make that look good. Not to boost my own ego, but I'm like, I know how to make that look good. And I work with some very, very talented people who I know can make it sound CD quality. Nobody has CDs anymore. I just lost some of the listeners here. They're like, what? tape worthy, right? It's going to make it sound tape worthy. It's going to make it sound 8-track worthy. So how can we leverage that? How can we provide something new? So I see these live streams and I go to the owners of the studio. I'm like, hey, again, I know it's easy for me to say as I'm not the one fronting the bill for this, but I really think that we could tap into the live stream market. I really think that we could do that. And so they're like, we're listening. One of their clients comes to them around the same time and they mention that just in passing, hey, this live stream thing. And the client goes, oh, I'm all over that. So our first gig out the gate, again, not to toot my own ego, but this idea that I brought to the table, it's immediately profitable. Immediately. And then the event that you and I worked on, that was one that like I actually brought to the table. Hey, this is a client. This is what they want to do. And it was like, again, I'm going to leak some information here, but it was a $5,000 gig and a time where they're not making anything. So I'm like, boom, got it. Right? And there are a couple of other gigs that come along. So again, I think that it was perfect place, perfect time. We're both in a place where how can we work together?
Well, and that's the thing. No matter where you're at, whether we're in a shutdown or not, everybody was forced to make a pivot. So it's like your brain just said, okay, what is the idea that's going to help us be better than nothing, right? And even if it's something, then it can result in something big. And yeah, you guys did it well. I mean, you were up in Sacramento on the 2 occasions with me. Yeah. You guys were in Southern California, so you were willing to travel. You were willing to do what it takes.
That's right. That's right. And again, just knowing, again, something that you and I have talked about, you just said it now, and again, other guests have mentioned, again, is exactly that, knowing when to pivot. Again, moving to Southern California, moving to LA, this idea of, I'm going to go to film school, I'm going to learn how to make movies, I'm going to make this short film. So
Michael, that's the thing. I was like surprised that you skipped from that piece of film to Apex and you forgot the biggest thing. Maybe you were waiting to save it till the end, because now I hear you starting to say it's like, this is the piece that I want everybody to hear about because it's the coolest thing ever.
What is
the
it?
Movie script.
Oh, that's cool too. Yeah. So
that's cool too. Okay, there's something else.
Yeah, God. Yeah, I have done a lot in a few years. Huh?
You have done a lot, Michael.
Yeah, that was again, talk about another happy accident, right? So go to film school, make my thesis film, get out of film school, graduate, and then just kind of like waiting. Again, talk about another pivot. I see a job posting on Marketplace, and it's somebody by the name of Nicole looking for a producer for her feature film. I've done no producing, but I know the general tools. I know how to do it. So I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. So I reach out, and immediately she's like, yeah, let's do this. And so she sends me the script. I give it a read. And again, it has very, very strong elements, a lot of strong bones. To me, it read like a TV movie.
Okay.
I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's how it read. And so my pitch to her was like, hey, with your blessing, I have some ideas, and I start pitching them, and I'm like, hey, can I work with you on rewriting this? Again, I know this is your baby. Like, I don't want to, do anything you don't want to do, but I think I know how to make this into a movie. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So we rewrite this whole thing. I mean, top to bottom, gut it, rewrite it, right? Again, adding meat to strong bones, but something new. Shortly after that, I'm like, hey, sake of conversation, how do you feel about me directing this thing? Again, I know you're going to direct it, but how do you feel about me directing it? Just an idea. And I start giving my reasons. And again, this is your baby. You don't have to say yes. And she's like, man, that's a hard one. Let me sleep on that. I'm like, cool. So we hop off the call, and she calls me back like 10 minutes later. She's like, you're going to direct this thing.
Nice.
I was like, thank you very much. So we start building our cast, and we get a lot of shockingly big names, ones that are in very, 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 very big projects who are very interested in doing it. And so we start submitting our scripts to different festivals.
Now, I have to ask, are you, because you dropped the names to me, are you allowed to drop those names? Technically, no. It's okay.
Yeah, I can. There's no NDAs or anything like that. And
okay.
I know that as of now, they've done, the big name in particular has done so much to where, I know that in my heart of hearts, once the movie gets going again, and I know that it'll get going again, I'm sure that he'll be out of the ballpark. But we had so I sent the script to Brendan Fraser. I sent it to his manager, fully expecting to hear nothing back. Right? Sent it to a lot of people. You hear nothing back. Maybe you get a no. Maybe you get something a little bit snottier. Nothing, right? I sent it to him before I went to do a location scout for the movie. I sent it to him, his manager, at like 1 a.m. When I woke up the next day, I had a response. We'll do it. We'll do it. He loves the script. Once you have the money, let us know. We'll do it. So that was,
and this is probably a whole nother episode, right?
Could be. Yeah, it very well could be.
It's fascinating. Okay, so nuts and bolts of it, because I know there's so many facets of it. Because right now, all the questions are going through my head, like, okay, what's the process of this? You know, and I know it's all been focused on MiKimos, but here we are as Michael being Martin Scorsese out of the gates, right? It's like, it's pretty cool stuff. So how does this end up, you know, it's just sitting there. We know that. But why is it just sitting there?
Yeah, so we had, again, this sounds very silly, but truly, and again, this is verifiable facts, we had awards plural coming in for this script. Best horror script, best original script, all these different things. And we had seemingly everything to go. I mean, again, we had a couple other like pieces to button up in terms of just like general contracts, things like that. And then ultimately the funding, right? The biggest how-to in film. How do you get this movie paid for? And we started having these like very like in-depth conversations with producers and more importantly with financiers on how we can get this movie made. And then just like everything else, the world shut down, right? The world shut down. And again, it's one, like once film started coming back, or even in the early stages, they were like, hey, this is how you can film it and this is how you can do it. And as much as I wanted to make that movie, and I still do, like I still adamantly want to make that movie at the time, because the idea of this like virus that we know very little about was so fresh, I didn't in good conscience have the ability to go to my cast and my crew, who I know as I sit here would have said yes. I didn't have the good conscience to go to them or the faith to go to them and be like, hey, would you feel comfortable doing this? I didn't even want to put them on the spot in the event that they wouldn't want to. And I'm sure 99% of those folks would have said, yeah, let's do it. But I didn't have the gumption to be like, hey, do you want to potentially risk your life for this thing we have no idea about to make this little movie that, again, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, right? So ultimately the idea was like, we're just going to see what happens. And unfortunately, like, again, now the movie is very much in limbo. The script is still there. I love that thing. I know that it'll get made someday. And we had other things that came up during pandemic as well. We had another script for a movie called Black Roses that we were like 3 weeks from filming. And then that was another one where the financiers were like, you know what? Nope, we're going to go make a Bollywood film instead. Very literal fact. These are the things that happen. We were going to go film that in Wisconsin. Again, we were talking to like Jeremy Renner's managers, and like it was, again, another project that like could have been. So yeah, that's what happened with the movie.
I mean, barbecue, Apple, production, cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done it all. You've done it all, and you're a young guy too. So I mean, that's what I have the respect for, and I believe that's what our connection is. I just feel like it's so cool that we've taken it from being able to work together on 2 different occasions, which were great, because that team at Apex was so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved working with each and every one of you. But now here we are, and we truly have we have a bond now, because, you know, we haven't even talked about truly diving into the heavy metal part, of which we've made a totally different show of with First Look. And a lot of that came because of your ideas. But what it shows me is that's how you work.
Yeah.
Right? You've just shown us all those examples of how you do that, and I think that's truly a gift. So I commend you, and I'm just glad we're in this together.
Hey, thank you so much. And again, same here. Again, I've said it before on these shows and to you, and I truly believe, like, again, getting to see, again, your example of, like, again, having the idea of broadcast and how you pivot that and how you adjust that, and ultimately look at where you are. You're making a podcast, which it's the new broadcast, and it's the newer, it's the better. But truly, this is where like podcasts are where people come to get their information, you know. And so yeah, it's just again knowing when to pivot and being okay with it, right? Being okay with that little bit of limbo. I reference what I do at Apple. I operate with a very, very like. The store itself has about 120 people who work in it, but my particular team is like 3 people. And I see that pressure go on to them where it's like, we're getting ignored, we're this, we're that. And like, I love it. I'm like, cool. Like, let me do my thing. Like, I know what I need to do. Like, and if I don't, I can ask those questions, but like, let's go do something. Like that anarchy of it, right? Again, maybe that's the punk rock element in me. I don't know, but let's just go get it. Let's just see what happens.
Exactly, and that's right. You have the right perspective and the right attitude, and I think that's what makes it so joyful for you. And that's what I see in you. And so that is just really, really cool. And I'm excited because truly the podcast thing really has given me this new like spirit, because I admit when I got out of broadcasting in 2004 to just become a teacher and pursue more of my entrepreneur things, I don't know. It was like there was something within me like, man, I do miss it. You know, and what would that look like if I got back into it? And because there was such a gap, I knew I couldn't dive back into exactly what I was doing when I left. But when the podcast idea came up, it was like, man, it was a whole new world. And the beauty is like I said, we have 2 shows, but I'm already talking to you about another show, which is going to have to do with the wedding DJ experience. Like, I'm so fired up about that. And as an entrepreneur, anybody who is an entrepreneur can know that when you have that moment, when you just go, oh my gosh, the idea, and then you just roll with it, that's the fun part of being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. It's a blessing. I'll say it's a blessing and a curse. My grandmother has the same thing.
Yeah, it can be.
My grandmother has the same element. You can tell that I'm her, like, that was my buddy growing up. Again, I grew up at my grandparents', and again, it was typically her and I. And like, I saw that in her, whether I was conscious of it or not. Now I definitely am, but it's like, what's next? Like, what else can I do? You know what I mean? Like, I work 5 days a week at Apple. I get to do the podcast. I get to do the reaction show, or Heavy Metal Thunder. Again, this new podcast, again, also very exciting. And again, I get to kind of do all the things that I love. And again, again, we go back to what you mentioned earlier, and it is possible. Like, doing what you want to do it. Like, it sounds so silly. Nike cut me a check, or maybe it's the other way around. I'm sure they have it patented, but just do it.
You didn't put the just in there, so you're okay. You just said
I did, but I'll censor it. I did, but I'll censor it. That's fine. That's fine. You know, swash.
Put a bleep in there.
Yeah, they're like, a bleep on ETB? I would have never thought.
I know. Well, hey, fun fact for everybody to leave this conversation. I think people may have seen like little glimpses and stuff. Here's my one.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Knobbe, how many tattoos do you have?
Oh man, I still don't know the number to that. I just
Really?
call it one. Yeah, it's probably in like probably close to 40 at this point, but I just call it one. I mean, my left sleeve is pretty much all one piece. My right one is a lot of individual pieces. My leg's the same, but probably close to 40 at this point.
Maybe we'll talk tattoos in the next conversation.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I love it. All right. Well, Michael, hey, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for jumping on board in this capacity. You're an outstanding producer, but your story, I'm glad you were able to share it, and hopefully it will inspire those entrepreneurs that are out there. Any final words from you?
Ooh, yeah, find us.
Pearls of wisdom.
Find us online. MiKimos Barbecue, MiKimos_barbecue on Instagram.com. No, again, it sounds very, very silly, but like, I have always had the energy of why not, right? Whether it be something that I'm interested in, whether it be an issue that I just couldn't let go. I can hear my grandmother's voice saying, Mikey, let it go. But I have never in my life been able to let it go, whether it be, again, something that I'm passionate about, something that I agree or disagree with. And I feel very grateful for that. I think sometimes it can be an issue, but I think more oftentimes than not, it's been a huge asset in my life. And so if I can leave folks with nothing else, it's don't be afraid to ask why not. And then going back to the Apple thing, part of their saying is good enough isn't, and I truly abide by that.
Nice. Well, your story now lives on Experience the Buzz. So we will take a break, and I'll be back with a final word. Thank you for tuning in. He's Michael Knobbe. I'm Steve Buzzard. We'll be back right after this.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Well, there you have it. Michael Knobbe, my producer, finally got his own show as the guest. Episode 129 is in the books, but again, we'll be having more guests coming your way. I am excited to tell you that we do have guests lined up, so there will not be a big gap before our next conversation. So again, join us as we bring you episodes, or try to bring you episodes, every single Friday. All we do, we just highlight the people of Sacramento, whether they are entrepreneurs, small business owners, or personalities here in the capital city. I love Sacramento. If you love Sacramento, we hope you tune in and subscribe right here on Experience the Buzz. So as we say goodbye today, that's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.